Welcome to KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guests today are from the Riverside Theater, an upcoming world premiere production of Housebroken. Say hi to Megan Gogarty.
Hi.
And to Ron Clark, who is the artistic director of the theater.
Well, I'm one of them. Good morning.
Yes, co-artistic director, I should say. We don't want to get in trouble with Jody.
No, believe me, we don't.
So actually, it's opening night tonight for Housebroken.
Yes.
This is a one-woman show.
Yes.
Written by
me,
Megan. And of course, you, as we were talking off mic before we started, you've been a part of the Iowa City theater community and have done many shows, one-person shows at Riverside Theater. So you're totally a known quantity to many of us. But for those who don't know Megan Gogarty, tell me a little bit about where you're from, where'd you grow up, what's your background?
So I'm a Iowa native. I was born in Des Moines and went to high school at East High, Des Moines East. Go Scarlets. And I did my undergrad at the University of Iowa. And then, like many people in the theater, I left the state and lived everywhere and got my MFA at Texas and bounced around Chicago and LA and whatnot. And then my husband, who's a musician, and we wanted to stop moving around. We wanted to throw our moving boxes away. And so we thought, well, where can we live that we love and can really sort of put our hands and grow roots and be in a community where we can make art and yet also, like, have a yard with vegetables in it, which you can't do in LA.
That's right. Ta-da.
I've noticed that.
Iowa City.
Yeah, and so we made a list. We actually got really scientific about it. We made a list of all the places we might want to live, and Iowa City was the top of the list. And so then we moved here, and we haven't regretted it. It's just been delightful.
And, of course, you've been able to keep making art. And, as I said, you've done several shows that you have premiered at Riverside Theater and then other things with wonderful titles like Hillary Clinton Got Me Pregnant. And,
True story.
Feet First in the Water with a Baby in My Teeth. I remember that one.
Another true story.
Well, I tell you, Riverside Theater was one of the magnets that drew us back to Iowa because it's such a great theater and they have such high professional standards, which is great. So you get all the sort of hominess and family feeling of a small, community, but with all the professional standards of, real theater makers.
Well, before we talk specifically about Housebroken, which is the show that premieres tonight at Riverside Theater, talk to me just a little bit about the difference between a one-woman show, a stand-up comedy routine, and a monologue.
Sure.
Because they all more or less involve one person in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So and you've done all of them.
Yes.
So tell me about what the differences are.
It's interesting. I compare writing a solo show with doing stand-up comedy. I don't know if you knit, Dennis, but if there's a knitter and a crocheter. On the outside, if you don't know how to knit or crochet, they kind of look the same. But people who really know how to knit and crochet are like, oh, well, they're completely different and use completely different tools. That's sort of how I feel about it. A solo show like Housebroken is a more narrative-based art. I'm coming to tell a story, and I'm going to tell it to you who have assembled here in the audience. And so I'm talking to you, but at the same time, I'm creating this narrative, right? Whereas stand-up comedy, you can tell a story if you want, but the point is not the story. The point is the laughs.
Is jokes.
Yeah, the point is jokes. Whereas Housebroken has a lot of jokes, but the point is the story and not the jokes, right? So the emphasis is on a little different. So it's a comedy, but there's a story at the heart of it. And that's what's kind of pushing you through as the audience member. It's like, what's going to happen next?
And the story is about buying a house.
Yes, the story is about just the heartbreak and hilarity. And what feels like heartbreak in the moment that later, with time, you can see is funny, about just how awful it is to buy a house and sell a house. But what it's really about is, so it's me. I like to say that all my plays are true stories, and some of it actually happened. Like so they're semi-autobiographical tales. But my character is, going through sort of the real estate mishigas of buying and selling a house. But what it's really about, on another level, is how buying a house triggered a real identity crisis for me. And I found myself going, well, am I the kind of person who would live on a cul-de-sac? And what does it mean if I do live on a cul-de-sac? And is that reflective of my values? And how important is it that I have granite countertops versus laminate countertops? And am I a better person if I have granite countertops?
See, I don't think any of these questions are funny.
Well, what about the all-important, am I a modern contemporary person, or am I a mid-century person?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And then I found myself just falling down the rabbit hole of HGTV, when you're just sort of mainlining that like it's drugs. Like, I've got to know, like, do I need to have a Zen garden in my backyard? Do I need to rake some sand to be a better person? Like, it gets really into this, like, crazy consumerist ideas.
What do you mean there's no lanai?
Yeah, exactly.
What? I didn't. See, I haven't bought a house for like 40 years, so these things are going right by me.
And so you have all these lofty ideals about what kind of person you would be if you made just a little bit more money, and how it would solve all your problems, and you'd just be grace personified. And then that comes crashing down to earth when you have to deal with things like radon in the basement, and whether or not the foundation is cracked, and whether or not you're going to, be able to pay for the closing costs. And, there's all this sort of like feet of clay stuff.
So how many times have you been through the house buying process?
Well,
'Cause you talked about moving to Iowa City specifically so that you could buy a house with a yard. Did you own a home in LA?
So we no.
Yeah.
I'd have to be a multimillionaire to own a house in LA.
Sure.
So we had what we now understand was our starter home. We thought it was going to be the house we died in, but we bought this little house when we moved to Iowa City. Yeah, it's cute. It was great. And then we outgrew it, which is what happens when you keep having children.
Mm-hmm.
It's because children, they just keep wanting things.
They
and
are
stuff.
space eaters.
They get bigger.
They do.
They get bigger, and the stuff they have gets bigger.
The Legos, Dennis, the Legos, they just infect. It's like an infestation of bugs with their Legos. So we just had to sort of realize we had to move. And so since this was our first time home, so we had to sell it, and we'd never sold a house before, and then we had to buy another house. And I don't know if you've ever been in that position.
The timing must work exactly right, and it never does.
It never does, and it's such a magic trick. And our real estate agent in the play is a made-up figure. He's a sort of amalgamation of
For $10, I'll tell you who it really is.
He's a fictional character.
He will be at the show, I am sure.
But our real estate agent, is able to sort of present the move in a very cut and dried, like step A, step B, step C. Like, it's just going to be so easy. You're going to put your house on the market, and then it's going to get an offer, and you're going to move, and it's all going to be beautiful.
But when it plays out, it's more like A, B, C, Q.
That's right.
D.
That's exactly right. It's like you sign up for what you think is going to be a modest merry-go-round, and it turns out to be a roller coaster ride into outer space, and there's no track anymore. And then somehow you end up landing, and you try not to throw up. That was my experience buying a house. Just don't throw up.
That was very poetic.
Talking with Megan and Ron about Housebroken, which opens tonight and runs for a few weeks at the Riverside Theater. We'll talk specific run dates in a minute. Now, talk to me about, because obviously, you wrote this. It's about your life, and you're going to present it on stage. But you have another person who comes in and directs you, Alexis.
Yes, Alexis Shamo. She is a longtime collaborator of mine. She has worked on just about, I make her read all my plays, whether she wants to or not, to get her feedback. But she's been a director and a dramaturg in a lot of my work. She directed my last Riverside show, Feet First in the Water with a Baby in My Teeth. She is based out of LA, and so I have to entice her to come. But she's just fantastic. She's so smart. And what's great about Alexis, my favorite thing about Alexis is an LA native. She's born and bred in LA. And while she's wonderful, she and I are coming from completely different worlds, which means, like, we don't understand each other. You know how, like, there are people that you can be like, hey, give me the thing. And they're like, yeah, I got it. And, like, you could speak in the shorthand. We have no shorthand. We have no sort of cultural similarities, which means we have to work overtime to be really clear with one another, which is actually such a gift when you're collaborating with somebody, because then I have to get really clear and specific in my mind, like, what am I trying to do in this scene? What is the most important piece of information I want to get across? And she's the one who could say, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like, Housebroken is a lot about Iowa City. Iowa City is sort of like another character in the play because, and I talk a lot about the east side of Iowa City versus the west side of Iowa City, and there's a lot of in-jokes for people who live in Iowa City. But I also want to make sure that the play resonates for people who don't have, who don't know Iowa City on an intimate cellular level. Like, I want to make sure that the ideas sort of are more universal. And so Alexis is great, where she's like, you're making a joke about North Liberty that I don't get. And so I have to like think about, okay, well, what's the most important thing that I'm trying to get across? And so she's just been a gift. She's a godsend.
What was the most surprising thing in this show that Alexis said, okay, we got to do that differently? You know, that you thought it was just, you know, crystal clear and people are going to, you know, people are going to be holding their sides. And she said, oh, no, that doesn't work at all.
Well, so many choices. One thing, when we talk about the North Liberty, I have a bit in the play about going to see a house in North Liberty and how there is a trampoline in the yard, a giant trampoline in the yard, and how this is sort of like a status symbol. And Alexis, coming from LA, she's like, I'm sorry, a trampoline is the status symbol? Where's the tennis court? Where's the indoor pool?
Where's the BMW?
Where's the BMW?
Grass and clay tennis courts.
Exactly. And so this idea that a trampoline would be some kind of status symbol, so we had to kind of work through that and figure that out.
But Megan's going to get some of the hard edges knocked off. Riverside Theater is so continental. You're going out to L.A. for a week of rehearsal, right?
Yeah, we started our rehearsal in March.
Right.
I went out to L.A. over spring break.
Right.
And then came back, and Alexis came back with me, and we rehearsed for 3
Yes,
weeks.
Yeah. And
now we opened. Yeah.
we're so continental.
That's
Yes,
right.
so
Yes.
this play has been workshopped.
Rehearsing in L.A. and opening in Iowa City.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not exactly the way that progression usually works, but I like it.
The accommodations that Megan had in LA were sumptuous.
Yes, I slept on many delightful couches, high-end furniture.
Well, it opens tonight. It's housebroken and runs for how long?
To the 26th.
The 26th. We've
okay.
got 3 weeks that we're covering there. And we do Thursday through Sundays. Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7:30, Sundays at 2.
And I see by my notes here you've got a couple of talkbacks that I'm sure will involve both Megan and Alexis.
Yes.
And
no,
Alexis is gone.
She's leaving tomorrow. She has to
Okay.
go back
She
to her
flies
life.
Oh,
away.
okay. All right.
She flies away.
All right.
So you'll just have to put up with me.
So that is this Sunday, the 12th,
Right.
and then next Friday, the
Yes.
17th,
Yes.
for the talkbacks. I recommend the show with the talkbacks because those
It's an
are.
extension of the comedy.
It really is. It's like a whole second show for free.
It is. It is very much that.
Well, it sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to it, and
Thank you.
good luck tonight as you
Thanks.
open,
Thank you.
and good luck for the rest of the run. Ron, tickets are available at
338, that would be 319 area code, 338-7672, 338-7672, or go to Riverside Theater, spelled T-R-E at the end of theater, riversidetheatra.org, and we have a very, very slick ticketing system. Ticket sales are very brisk, so I'm recommending that you get in there soon and get your order in.
Okay. All right, Megan, great to meet you in person finally.
Yeah, thank you.
Isn't she fun?
After all these years, come back anytime.
Okay,
in fact,
I'll
if you
be
want to
back
do a
tomorrow.
radio show, we've got a spot.
Look out.
Thank you.
Thanks
Dennis.
again, and good luck with it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dennis.